Good morning, everybody. We are here as a part of Research Team 391 from CII. And first, an apology. It's a bigger research team than you see represented on this stage. So we're going to do our best to fill some very big shoes. But forgive us if we're perhaps not as compelling as a Kenny Kelly, who is not here with us today. Indeed. All right, so what do you want for the future of advanced work packaging? Mic adjustment, apparently. What we're going to present today are the results of our Research Team 391, which was about intelligent advanced work packaging, which is advanced work packaging assisted by AI, machine learning, and data analytics. So when we presented this the first time, we invited people to participate and to really think about what they wanted for the future of advanced work packaging and to contribute their thoughts here. We don't have that capability set up today, available here with us, but some really interesting themes emerged, which I will share at the end of our presentation, and I hope to seed conversation and discussion. So please do take a moment to really consider, as we go through this presentation, what we need the future of advanced work packaging to look like for our continued success and increased productivity. So first, why? Why are we looking into intelligent advanced work packaging, or IAWP as we're calling it? As we all know, increased energy demand, economic growth, population growth is leading to a surge in construction activity. But I think we also know that construction has a long record of poor productivity, including at one point, 2/3 of our time being non-productive on site. This, I think, as we all collectively agree, why we're all here, is the impetus behind advanced work packaging, increasing productivity, reducing cost, and improving safety. Our AWP journey started about 20 years ago, and it's been a process of continuous improvement. And just this year, CII is working to release data standards, align data models to those standards, and really recognizing the imperative and the importance of data in advanced work packaging. And this is fundamentally because AWP depends on interface management between design, material, schedule, workface planning, all the way through commissioning, startup, and ultimately data handover for operations. But at the center of all of these interfaces are people. And this is where we believe that data, AI, and machine learning really has the potential to impact and advance AWP, to improve decision-making and to improve the efficiency of those interfaces as we work through the entire project lifecycle. All right, so a bit about the approach that our research team took. We used an umbrella view of artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is a kind of wide swath of things. We wanted to take the opportunity to consider all of those that might impact, influence, and advance the AWP process. And so we'll be talking about a number of different types of AI today, from optimization algorithms to automated translation or document generation. And so we took a broad approach. Our academic partner in this research was Carnegie Mellon. Carnegie Mellon, as it happens, is where the CAPTCHA, for those of you who have ever logged into anything, understand, which is a decidedly good tool for differentiating humans from AI. And CMU continues to advance AI research, and they were a key collaborator with us in this research team. I am not a robot, as it were. Yep. And so here we are, defining opportunities to leverage artificial intelligence, machine learning, and data analytics for AWP. The overall objective of this group was to identify, characterize, and rank opportunities to help us build the roadmap that we need to travel down to advance AWP and increase its intelligence to continue to move us forward. And so there are three things that we're going to touch on today that are key takeaways. The aspects of AWP that can be enhanced, those that have the highest potential impact as rated by our industry peers, and then the risks or challenges that we might foresee in advancing in these areas. All right, so it's a 40-minute journey. We might try to be a little bit briefer than that so we can leave more time for conversation. But the goal today as we walk through this journey is to find those challenges, talk about how we evaluated those opportunities, and then close with looking toward the future and what we think is the roadmap. How do we get there? And so with that, as is the theme throughout our entire presentation, we quote Daft Punk: work it harder, make it better, do it faster. And with that, AWP.
We conducted interviews early on to gather information, and we did so with reference to the artificial intelligence hierarchy of needs. At the bottom, you have generating, sensing, and logging data. That's simply just data collection. So this is paramount, it's fundamental, it's at the bottom of our triangle. Then we have data infrastructure and storage. That's going to be like a database. And then data cleaning and preparation. That's your ETL, extract, translate, load. Sometimes if you have two different systems with two different purposes and you're sending information from one to the other, there's a translation that has to occur. So sometimes that's the tricky part to explain to people, is that going from one system to another, there's a translation that has to occur at times as well. Data analytics is your Power BI and any type of analysis. The machine learning aspect of it is going to be testing. And then after you've done all that, then you can have your artificial intelligence. From our interviews, we talked about, with reference to ADP in practice, data management. And this is always fun, artificial intelligence for construction. So I find it fun thinking about construction workers out there trying to use artificial intelligence. So that's always fun. But speaking of fun, if money were no issue, that'd be a lot of fun. If money were no issue, I probably wouldn't be on the stage right now. But hey, I'm here now. Money is an issue. We conducted these interviews, but a lot of us are more construction orientated and business development. We're not researchers. So we had our academics help us out with this process. So we constructed these user stories from our interviews that would say, as a such and such, I want to do something in order to achieve a goal instead of a pain point. For example, as an owner, I want to improve data quality across the board in order to enable ADP instead of having to manipulate or clean data on the fly. So this is paramount. This is something that came out throughout our research. I was glad to see it from the beginning to end. It's in our documentation and in our report as well, is that we need clean data just to make anything work. It's not just for artificial intelligence. It's just so fundamental. And then instead of having to manipulate data on the fly. So when Martin did this presentation, Martin Swain, with Shell, he talked about how occasionally we have to do things in the field to make things happen using our access databases and the shadows. I've done that. I've been guilty of that as myself as well. So we want to cut back on having to do that, and having clean data will help us with that process. We took all of those user stories and categorized them and came up with 7 challenges. The first one is going to be data collection and processing. I need better data, not only to support ADVP, but to improve delivery in general. So again, here we are. We're talking about clean data, not just for artificial intelligence or ADVP, just to improve project delivery. So this is very paramount in what we're trying to achieve. Scheduling installation of work packages. There is a debate on, do you put your installation work packages into the Primavera schedule, or do you do it in your workplace planning software systems? So I would say put it in your workplace planning software systems, but either way, scheduling those IWPs is very important. If you put it in the Primavera schedule, then it makes it more difficult to change those dates. So I would advocate putting it in the software systems itself, right? So, but either way, we could use artificial intelligence to help schedule that. So when changes do occur, you don't have to rely on a planner on knowing about all that and updating those dates. You could have that done automatically, or automagically, as we like to say. A construction manager once reminded me, and it's always stuck in my head, is that, hey, Mark, you got all these fancy ideas, but hey, does it provide value? So when we talk about implementing artificial intelligence or any kind of technology, sometimes we need to talk about an ROI and what kind of return on investment we're going to get. So if you're not doing constraint analysis, then you're not doing advanced work packaging or workplace planning. So we could use artificial intelligence to help us with predicting constraints. We can automate a lot of constraint management. Say, for example, if all the materials aren't available, automatically create a constraint. Once they are available, automatically close the constraint. And we can do that with a lot of things. Another one is going to be, say, for example, IFC status of all your drawings. If the drawings aren't all IFC'd, automatically create a constraint. Once they become IFC'd, issue for construction, then automatically close the constraint. So we can do that with a lot of things, but not everything. A lot of those, there's all kinds of different constraints that can occur, and we rely on planners to track all those. We could use artificial intelligence to help us eliminate last-minute surprises and by tracking all those constraints. And speaking of constraints, at the top of the list, typically, is material management. So we could use artificial intelligence to help cut back on having material issues and to help source materials, from all the different suppliers out there. There's so many different suppliers. We could use artificial intelligence to help us out with that process. Progress measurement. So we implement all this fancy technology and this process, ADP process, artificial intelligence, and software systems. An owner might want to know, as Martin indicated, okay, so what is my benefit? How are we doing against the budget, and how are we doing against the schedule? So another challenge is using artificial intelligence to help track progress. And the path of construction. Advanced work packaging is largely predicated on the concept of you define CDVPs very early on in a project, and then you align those CDVPs across the path of construction. That is an iterative process. You have to think about all the different possible scenarios that can occur. And once you make that decision, then you need to stick with it. But it's an iterative process to define the path of construction initially. And if you pick the wrong path of construction, no amount of technology is going to solve that. So we could use artificial intelligence to help us pick the proper path of construction as well. And Eric Corbella is going to tell us a little bit about that during this presentation. So we came up with all those challenges, and then we evaluated those opportunities on what we can do about those. And we'll talk about the analysis that we came up with from our research. And we did so with reference to 10 criteria. And we'll talk about a couple of these. One is going to be, hopefully, after all this, we're going to see a productivity impact, right? That's one of our goals here, so we hope that we're going to see that. Criticality of the task is the relevance of the task being tackled by the solution in terms of how much it affects the overall performance of the project. In other words, is what we're doing really helping the project? We might achieve a task that's phenomenal and really neat and people are impressed with it, but does it help the bottom line of the project? Generalizability is going to be the consistency of the solution across different projects. Again, if you have someone, and Martin said he did this, I've done this before and got in trouble for it, and that we're using access databases in the background, but there's obviously a lot of problems with that, and one of them is that it's not easily repeatable. So we want to be able to pick up things and put it on the next project. It's funny that we make things work and we're very successful on projects one way or the other, but then it seems like I have to rewrite this all over again, so we want to have something that's repeatable. We're going to talk about stakeholder buy-in, and then throughout our presentation, plus in the last presentation, plus the next presentation I'm going to give in an hour or a few minutes from now, we're going to talk about data availability. But first, we will talk about our survey. And 65% had more than 6 years of our respondents had more than 6 years experience. Is mostly construction management, project management, mostly from EPCs. And 40% of the participants said they were very familiar with advanced work packaging. So one of the things that made our research team very successful wasn't just a team. Evan had indicated that we had a very good team. I loved working with our team, and we had a lot of experience. However, we did not just rely on our experience. We reached out to the community, and we're actually kind of pleased with the responses that we got. So I want to say thank you for responding to our survey. And out of respect, I support other teams' surveys as well. I'm doing an interview at Research Team 403 next week to show appreciation that people responded to us. I'll help them out as well. So here are some of our results, and we would hope that we would see a productivity impact. Across the board, we had 4 user groups, and all 4 user groups believed that that intelligent advanced work packaging and artificial intelligence can help us achieve a productivity impact. So that's what we wanted to see, and it is unanimous across the board that we can achieve this. We noticed that the top 5 criteria didn't change, which means the bottom 5 stay the same as well. But speaking of the bottom, at the bottom of the list is stakeholder buy-in. So we did a 2-year research project and found out that we have a stakeholder buy-in issue. Who knew, huh? So what happens is that when you try to implement new technology, it touches so many different departments, and you get pushback, and what's in it for me? One of the things that we hear a lot is that, okay, you want to do this and try to make things better, but that goes against our procedure. Well, we're trying to make things better. So it might not be your procedure, but maybe we could update things and make them improve. Throughout our research, we see issues with data availability, so that's something we're going to talk about throughout this presentation, and it's extensively throughout our report. So here we have the 7 opportunities with reference to the 4 user groups. We have progress measurement. So owners want to see where we're at. We implement technology, we implement process, we put up money up front to make this happen. What is the bottom line result from that? So owners want to know where we're at in terms of progress measurement. We could use artificial intelligence to help us with that process. Then we have artificial intelligence for work phase planning, and that's going to be largely the schedule impact. We have a lot of technology providers here, and we all have our strengths and things that we focus on, but one of the things that we know as technology providers is that we could do even more, that we could use artificial intelligence to help us track the packages. And then constraint analysis, artificial intelligence for constraint analysis. So like we said, is that we have all these different things that could happen to a package ahead of time. So we want to track that information. We want to know exactly what could go wrong so we can mitigate it ahead of time. The EPCs wanted to know about material management. So of all the different things we could do with artificial intelligence, the EPCs came back to us and said that we would like to see artificial intelligence to help us out with material management. Kenny Kelly gave a fun presentation on that before. We're going to have Eric helping us out with that now. And the path of construction. So as technology providers, we do neat stuff, and it's a lot of fun. I enjoy what I do, but we could take it to the next level and use artificial intelligence to help us predict a path of construction. And again, Eric Carvella is going to tell us about that as well. And then data collection is paramount all the time. None of this is going to work if we don't have the right data in the first place. And at the bottom of the list is using artificial intelligence to calculate an ROI. So in about 2008 or so, Eric Carvella and I, Eric was with Bentley, I was with Jacobs, and we were trying to sell Construct Sim to NRD, Non-Road Diesel Project for ExxonMobil. And we're working on creating an ROI, and I always remember that because it's not an easy thing to do. So we could use artificial intelligence to help calculate an ROI. However, we realized that from our survey results, what we see is that we know we're going to get an ROI one way or the other, and there's more important things that we could use artificial intelligence for than calculating an ROI. So we could use artificial intelligence for that, but there's much more fun, exciting things than just calculating an ROI. We know we're going to achieve that anyway.
All right. So this is from an owner's perspective. Owners want to see AI and machine learning used for progress measurement, right? So it's a huge priority for them. According to our survey results, that's one of their top expectations is to use AI, machine learning, in order to automatically capture progress, right? Owners put their intent, all their expectations, they get together, they line that up, they put all their contracts together, right? They try to put the right requirements directly into their contract language, right? And so we've started getting better at that and putting the right clauses in there for construction management portion of it. And hopefully we're getting better at doing that from a data management, information management, putting our data specs directly into the contracts, but also the project control specs, right? And how do we put those into the contract? The owners give them to the contractor and their subs, and what do they ask for? They ask for progress measurement coming out of that. So owners are trying to move away from this monthly progressing, because by the time they get that report, it's over, it's out of date, it's not as useful. Everybody's trying to move towards more real-time progressing, right? And so AI can play a big role in getting to that level of real-time progressing. And that's important for us to track as we go along there. So my friend Mick Heim that did that from JGC, that gave the RT390, the AWP execution guide, and what good looks like. He did the technology portion of that, and he described the data for AWP as exploding. Martin, in his presentation, describes it as big data, right? So any way you look at it, you have a number of satellites of data and applications coming together, numerous cloud applications that all have to come together, and they're feeding this AWP machine, right? So when it was just work-face planning, it was a little bit simpler. Just a limited set of data. But now that we've kind of backed it up into the front end portion of it with AWP, then the volume of data, the complexity, and the level of integration required, it takes a small army in order to accomplish, right? This is where AI can play a real critical role, and especially in automating progress measurement, right? So construction is perhaps not where our young people want to go do their careers anymore, right? So it's not as appealing to go into construction if you're a young person looking at high-tech fields. Perhaps AI in this generation of gamers and people that have been brought up on smartphones and Minecraft, maybe we can appeal to this next generation and use AI in order to bring in the next generation and perhaps even take advantage of those skill sets. So there's a new breed of constructor that also is armed with the information management, and the technology skill sets in order to really take this and make this a promising career for young people that want to get into construction, but don't want to just do all the heavy lifting, right? So the data admin type of position, right? It's appealing and can be a very promising type of career. So this depicts a lot of small AI applications that can be used and done so in various settings and solutions. So using a neural network, long short-term memory to predict work packages delays, right? Or another solution in terms of using computer vision-based methods to track work package progress, right? So there's a number of tools that are on the market and applications that can track some level of progress as well. I could name like 3 or 4 of them in terms of doing really neat stuff in terms of safety, Doxel, and a bunch of other ones that are doing it for tracking field-based progressing. But there's other solutions also in terms of using deep reinforcement learning algorithms to adaptively control the path of construction. So there's some neat stuff that's out there already, and there's more to come, right? So, and then on the path of construction side of it, from a service provider's perspective, right, this is where we get into automating the path of construction. And automating the path of construction is basically what I would say is a fundamental in terms of having robust AI in AWP. So if you're going to try to do this, automating the path of construction is one of the first things that you want to tackle. And as a general observation, many construction managers and project managers lack the skills and talents to effectively develop a path of construction and continuously iterate on it in order to keep it up to date. So project teams often cite the need to develop and maintain the POC as one of the biggest challenges. And oftentimes they don't do it, right? They'll do it once at the beginning of the project, but they don't iterate on it, right? So we specify the path of construction. There's at least 4 POC events throughout the life cycle, according to Hoyle on the RT 391 and or 390 in terms of the execution guide. But it's an iterative process, right? And having to take this and automate the path of construction using AI to the path of startup and the startup systems, framing the basis of the path of engineering and our modularization and our pre-assembly strategy, as well as the development of procurement work packages to define our supply plan, as well as the contracting quilt and labor packages, bringing all those together. And of course, the path of construction drives fabrication to facilitate the integrated materials management and the delivery plans. So it's not an easy problem to address, but it's one that AI is well positioned to assist humans, not do it fully for everybody or to completely automate it, but to assist humans to develop a more optimal path and integrated schedules as we go forward. So automating the path of construction is ripe for AI and machine learning, and it requires a number of inputs, such as the project execution plan, startup dates, long lead items, level 1 and level 2 schedule, that need to be synthesized to arrive at a proper path of construction outputs early in the project to set it up for success. The path of construction is an iterative process, but one that becomes the basis for the data architecture that enables other AI use cases such as integrated materials management, constraint management, and the shared resource allocation such as scaffold, cranes, and access management, all very important portions. So the trick to automating the path of construction is integrating the data in an AWP, AI, ML type of framework across vendor applications and disciplines to standardize and automate the AWP workflows. So CII has done previous research into digital threads several years ago, probably 4 or 5 years ago. And that work came out of that work with a basic definition of some digital threads, but what materialized out of that is the AWP data requirements. And from there, there's a joint working group that has taken that and has furthered that into defining those and putting that into a data model and also harmonizing that with CFO standards for handover. So this is not new territory, but we're building off of this concept of digital threads. So you probably heard digital threads mentioned a bunch during this conference. A digital thread is a stream of data, right? It flows throughout the entire product life cycle, if you will, right? Helps companies look beyond the narrow function-specific definitions and include more data sources. And it powers companies to, be much bigger in their objectives around their company-wide cost and risk reductions and provide efficiency and flexibility, right? So it's now time for this kind of thread thinking first approach going forward. It's all about the data. You've heard that from Kevin Nally. You've heard that in every one of the presentations. So can we validate the data? Can we integrate it together? Can we automate it? Can we orchestrate those workflows around AWP? Can we keep a virtual construction model constantly up to date? So that is really the trick here. And using this concept of digital threads is a critical enabler of that in terms of getting the data at the right time and formatting it and being able to orchestrate these workflows so you can deliver specific AWP capabilities such as the path of construction. So from a big picture perspective, automating the path of construction really involves, putting in some initial configuration into the inputs into that, the work breakdown structure, how many packages you're going to have in a given area, the type of packages, and then being able to define your CWAs, your CWPs, doing that from a 2D plot plan early on, even before a 3D model is developed, right? And then automating those plans and the schedule inputs and having some basic sequence logic. I'm going to build north to south, east to west, whatever it may be. And then being able to automate the boundary demarcation within there for your CWAs, CWPs directly within the model, right? And then essentially then go through an exercise to validate the path of construction and then iterate on that. So it's not a one and done, but keep iterating on it as you go along, right? And then also pull in the systems definition so you can make a transition from install by areas to the way it gets turned over by system and started up by system. So that's really critical to do. So this is the path of construction for AWP. This is stuff that's going on now, right? So this is available and folks are doing this, and it's a fundamental capability that you should be looking to implement as part of your AWP program. The next side of it as well is doing this on the materials management side of it. Ooh, I didn't advance this slide to this one, sorry. All right, so this is, effective integrated materials management, effective materials management is super critical for AWP. It's 80% of the battle is getting the materials right? You need to optimize the material delivery, ensuring that the right materials are available at the right time and the right quantities. And this can be pretty challenging for projects, right? So being able to track where the materials are and offering a level of visibility and maintaining accurate and up-to-date visibility into the status of materials throughout the whole AWP process is difficult. This is where artificial intelligence and machine learning can come into play. So in terms of being able to figure out, hey, what do I have on site? What's in the laydown yard? And how does that match up to each one of these IWPs in terms of trowel allocations? But to do that in a very automated way and just using cameras at site or using drones or spot the dog, that sort of thing. So there's a lot of neat things that can be done along these lines that are not just neat, but actually, have a tremendous ROI, particularly related onto the materials management side of it. So on the, in terms of the solutions that we're looking to do, we're looking to optimize certainty and uncertainty, right? So how do we reduce the uncertainty associated with our materials management, right? This is where AI can play a key role into that as well as monitoring the quantities automatically, the min-max in terms of, when our bulk materials are getting depleted, how do we automate setting up the procurement process and reordering those automatically with the least human intervention as possible in order to keep those up to date, right? And so update our orders with more certainty in terms of being understand what's next and where do we have enough materials to go do the next 5 or 6 work packages, etc. So it's really possible to do all this, and we're progressing that as we go forward here. If you look at some of the examples of where things are, the power of where things are at, and the power of AWP and materials management. One of the examples that my colleague Kenny Kelly from Dow gave at the CII conference was along the lines of ChatGDP, right? So Kenny's a true construction guy, and he got up there and said, I'm Larry the cable guy that meets ChatGDP. And so he progressed this in terms of being able to show, hey, can we use AWP here or AI in order to improve the materials management? And he showed an example in terms of using ChatGDP and asking ChatGDP some questions in terms of defining what AWP was. And much to his astonishment, it certainly defined it quite well. And so we connect the dots there. There is huge promise for the use of ChatGDP type of capabilities and generative AI in this field along these lines. This is showing an example of how it gave a beautiful description of what AWP is by typing in to ChatGDP. But we need to be able to get to that in terms of where we're at with our materials management side of it, right? So, there's some near-term challenges to unlock some long-term gains, right? So our short-term challenges really are adapting to variability, right? How do we get new data, new schedules, new orders in there and automate those processes and feed all that? And to get to a point where we can optimize things in terms of the project delivery and taking advantage of machine learning type of algorithms to really facilitate that. And so hopefully when you get some of the basic blocking and tackling down of getting the data availability and the visibility on that and reducing the variability of the data, then that unlocks the key to doing some of the longer term goals in terms of managing the uncertainty and reducing the risk as we go forward. And so very promising areas, both the path of construction and using AI and machine learning to help get to integrated materials management, where we have more complete view and tip to tail of our integrated materials management side of it, and bringing that all forward. So with that, I'll bring Evan back up and we'll talk more about looking into the future.
So as we look to the future, how do we get there? What's the path to accomplish all these great things that Eric and Mark have presented? And to answer that question, I want to return back to the AI hierarchy of needs. Our goal is obviously to get to the pinnacle, but as has been emphasized throughout this presentation, we need to continue to build our foundation. Generating, sensing, logging data, our data storage and exchange infrastructure are critical. CII is continuing to advance this. AI can also help in this domain with respect to IoT, field-generated data, as well as there's been recent promising work on generating synthetic data for big learning, which I think is something worth pursuing. Because the other challenge to data generation and data generation at scale is human. It's the ask to share. We're all very protective. I work for an EPC. We're all very protective of our IP, of our means and methods. But accomplishing intelligent AWP is going to require data sharing. And so thinking about how we can anonymize, create synthetic data, and generate the foundations for our advanced work packaging in a collective industry-looking way. The second thing that we can do to advance ourselves on this path is to think about intelligent AWP solutions as products, which is to say, AWP is an entire life cycle of a project. We can't solve for the universe, and we can't boil the ocean. And as we've discussed, it's important to build trust with our stakeholders, right? Adoption can be difficult. So focusing on individual point solutions that make our folks' lives better in concerted and identifiable ways, rather than trying to solve for the entire solution all at once. And to do that, I would argue that we need to build what we call in the technology industry fusion teams, which we need to bring our technologists together with our craft, with our subject matter experts, and have them all own the solution as it's developed, so that you build that trust, you generate that buy-in, and you build solutions that work for the folks who need to use them. All right, so this is our last slide. And I didn't write this slide. As someone who is a technologist who has a background in AI and data science, who works for an EPC, I know how conservative our industry can be. So I'm not sure this is true. But the call to action that I would put out to this group is that I think that it needs to be true. If we are going to meet the demands that our industry is putting in front of us, if we are going to continue to advance AWP, if we are going to continue to advance productivity, then we need to increase the intelligence in our processes. And so, as I said at the start of the presentation, we asked for feedback during our original CII presentation, and we didn't do that here, but I'd like to speak to a few of the themes that emerged from those comments and then invite folks to comment and ask questions themselves. So a couple of the key themes that emerged from folks' comments after we gave this presentation the first time was one around the human machine learning AI interaction. What is that balance between kind of human interface and technology and artificial intelligence? You know, people made comments like they wanted to fully automate AWP or they wanted an easy button, but people also made comments wondering about the role of AI and whether it would impinge on their jobs, perhaps. And our general position as a research team and with folks with whom we spoke is that we're not going to take the human out of the loop. AI in our industry can help, but it's a decision support tool. It's about surfacing the right information to the right people at the right time, kind of fundamentally the premise of AWP in the first place. But we work in an industry where we can't take people out of the loop. There's too much at stake. Another theme that emerged in the comments that we spoke to today is moving towards standardization, sharing terminology, sharing data standards, sharing data definitions, and how that can be a fundamental key to unlocking AI capabilities. This is something that CII is working to. This is something that all these people, all you are working to, and that we need to continue to advance. It is our foundation. And then lastly, there are some comments and questions about the broad applicability of AI to our industry, which is a project-based industry. I hear it a lot in my work, where every project manager or project director comes to me and says, no, but my project is special. It's different. Every project is unique, or every project is a special snowflake. And that is true. The complexity of the things that we build, they are unique, and they are all going to be a little bit different. But there are general principles, right? In the same way that a piping engineer learns and gains experience from one job that he can take to the next, there are general principles to the work that we do. And so our goal with artificial intelligence is to learn, extract, and identify those general principles so that we can carry them across all of our projects and improve productivity as we go. All right, with that, I'll close and would love to invite folks for question and comment.
All right. So if you're interested in continuing this journey, certainly within the CII, the Advanced Work Packaging Community of Business Advancement has the capability of the joint working group related to AWP data requirements is one aspect of it. They're coming up with a data model and harmonizing that with CFOS. But there's also a lot of energy related to AI, machine learning, and digital threads. And what's the next steps in terms of where we go to developing more of a library of digital threads within CII. So if there's folks that have energy related to that and any passion related to that, get in touch and we'll rope you into participating in either upcoming research, or participating in the joint working group related to the AWP data requirements. As a joint working group, you don't have to be a member of CII. We prefer that you're actually a member, but to participate in joint working groups rather than just the subcommittees within the Community of Business Advancement, you don't necessarily have to be a CII member, but we encourage that. So if anybody is interested in continuing on in this sort of vein, that's one of the areas that you can participate in, and we welcome your involvement there. It takes a village to pull this off, and in creating the standards that we described in terms of everybody agreeing on what good looks like, and particularly what the data good looks like, is very, very important if we're going to validate, integrate, automate, and orchestrate all this going forward. So anybody have any questions for us in terms of this?
Yeah, so one question around the ChatGPT integration or something like that. So my understanding of large language models is that one of the issues is that any information you enter and then the use of the model must accessed by the public. Was there any discussion around that specifically from an owner's perspective? You know, there's a big concern with want our information on our project to be safeguarded. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it is an issue. So public service announcement, please don't put any of your business's proprietary information into public AI. It will learn from them. There's a strong cautionary tale from Samsung, in fact, where Samsung permitted its engineers to use public ChatGPT, the OpenAI version, to help solve some of their coding problems, right, to validate their code. ChatGPT learned their proprietary code, such that if you then went to the public AI and asked, how do I solve this particular coding problem, it would produce you Samsung's proprietary code. So please don't do that. That said, the technology industry recognizes the potential power of ChatGPT for businesses. So Microsoft, OpenAI, a number of other customers are working on deploying private models. And so what that looks like is the large language model is trained on the general intelligence, and then it's deployed privately to your business such that any information that you enter into it only improves or learns your private instance of the model. So that's going to be the path forward for what we would consider to be proprietary information. But yes, again, PSA, please don't put your proprietary information into public AI.
Have you guys ever seen the movie Moneyball, right? Evan has a team of data scientists that is just doing amazing things. She's a colleague that I'm friendly with at Bechtel, Doug Olmachinsky. And every time I get together with Doug at a CII event, I'm like, Doug, can you tell me what Evan's working on? He's like, nah, I'd have to kill you, right? So that sort of thing. But I really, really appreciate all our Evan, Mark. The folks at CMU were like great in terms of helping on this research team and doing the surveys. It was a really fun research team to participate in. I'm sorry that you didn't get the Kenny Kelly version of the presentation. He did it much more funny than I did. We had Martin Swain. We had Dario Regard from Floor. We had a couple other people as well. But anyway, we had a wonderful team. We thank you guys for listening to us. If there's no more questions, Brett?
I'd be curious to know, what are you doing in terms of any external mindset? And I ask because, well, the fact that, our industry's the 1%, it's at the bottom of the barrel. We haven't been improving. We haven't adopted AWP readily over the past umpteen years. And now we're talking about really pushing boundaries and technologies and going into this. So why not go and get some consultation, and maybe you are, that's my question. Bring an external disruptor into this. I think it's time for us to disrupt our industry. So how can we use that to leverage to go to something like this? Because I wholeheartedly agree, we need to go there and should be doing this. But can we do it with this, current state without any kind of other influence that might help us get there and understand what does it take to be an industry disruptor and a technology disruptor?
I would say a part of that answer would be to look around the room as well. So one of the things we joked about in the past with some of these conferences is that we had the same people over and over again. We keep presenting to each other. We're not really helping. So we've added a lot of new companies to this conference. So in terms of disruptors, there's companies here that I'm not familiar with. I know most of them, but there's a couple new ones as well I haven't even heard of before. So meet with them, and they might provide some of those positive disruptors as well.
So that's a great way to tee up the November AWP CBA meeting, right? I've invited some colleagues that are working with Shell and Plan that are doing AI and doing predictive models for capital projects to present for the November meeting. So that should be interesting. So we do need to get some new blood in here, right? I mean, like there's folks here that are chipping away at AI and doing some stuff, right? We're certainly helping to try to do some things on path of construction and automating some of the package development type of stuff. Evan and Bechtel are doing, I can only imagine, really, really cool stuff. But we need to get some of the folks that are on the outside that are doing this more generally for AI and machine learning and apply that into our industry. That's why we get the disruptive, right? So, Evan, you can probably speak to that more than me.
Yes, I concur with kind of all of the things that were just said, and I do believe that disruption is important. But I also want to come from the other side of it, which is that we can't disregard the incredible amount of expertise that has been developed over centuries in our industry, and people who really, really know what they're doing. And we need to bring them with us, right? No superintendent's going to take a solution from me if I can't have a reasonable conversation about piping, right? And so we need to iterate, and we need to iterate with our folks that are going to use the technology. And then they become our leaders. So some of the coolest things that I've seen in my work is we did a site visit with a prospective customer to one of our existing projects. And our craft professionals did a presentation on our AI-based tools. They were so pumped about them. They sold it for me. I didn't have to sell it. So if you don't bring the end users with you, you're not going to get there.
Excellent. Anybody else? All right. Hey, thank you guys for your time. Thank you.